All right, when we look at Vegas, we have quite a lot to talk about. It has been a while since we've been able to really sit down and look at intermediate tracks, since we've been at road courses, we've been at super speedways, and yada, yada, yada. So let's go ahead and bring up our glorious current form sheet updated to Texas of this year. And there's a few things I want to discuss entering this weekend with Las Vegas, and a lot of it isn't going to necessarily be talking about this Las Vegas race, more so looking back at what we've seen as of, in the second half of the year and everything towards that. And so the reason why I like looking at this is because I'm much more of a visual guy, and I'd rather see the names versus the numbers. And whenever I'm goofing around, I need to be like, oh, let's see how I have never won a race Bubba Wallace has been doing as of late. I can just control F and search and very quickly see where they're at. I understand this is the top 10. I understand this is mid-pack and blah, 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 blah. We have seen not necessarily a resurgence, but we are seeing teams make a clear, or more so not even mid-tier teams. When we're looking at top tier, mid-tier, and stuff like that, we're seeing a pretty big transition between where guys were running, from like 5th to 13th early in the year, and then we're seeing some guys move into the top 5, some guys move out. Clearly, we're seeing, very consistent people like William Byron has just been here this whole time. We know Larson has just been fast. And for those of you that are just tuning in for the first time, this is not finishing position. This is sorted by average running position, percentage of laps ran in the top 5, top 10, laps led, combined with pit road speed. I think this gives you a much better indication of where people are. Like Kyle Larson didn't finish second at Texas, but he had the second best car there. We're seeing that a lot of the main guys like Hamlin, Larson, Byron have been there. We're seeing that specifically 2311 has been making improvements. And the next tab that I want to show you has starting position as well, because I think that is something that we want to consider. I understand when we're entering this weekend, we're looking at just where people have been in terms of speed, to have an idea entering Vegas. But one thing that I've been looking at more and more is honestly just looking at practice data and looking at starting position. Not because I'm being lazy, not because I'm wanting to use less of my week time looking at NASCAR stuff, but that really is a better indication, especially when you enter already being aware of where these guys are, what their strengths were, what their weaknesses were, and things of that nature. Like when we look at Reddick, who went on a hot streak recently, of having the fastest car at Arlington, the fastest car at Texas or Kansas, and then just didn't qualify well at Texas. That's why you got to take each of these with a grain of salt. Texas is a one-lane racetrack. You can't pass it all. I was there. There was 2 cars that could get through the field, and it was Larson and it was Hamlin. Everybody else was stalling out. Everybody, that is the one thing I enjoy about being at a track like that, is we can just, I was just able to watch, why is Cindric struggling so fucking much? Why is he so slow? What is going on here? And we just see that guys get stuck side by side and they couldn't pass, or not even side by side, they'd get in line, they'd run a DRS train around the track, and then they just couldn't pass anybody, when they're racing for last. When we're specifically looking at Texas, we have Cindric, Zane Smith, Dillon, Harrison Burton, Logano, just stuck in the back of the field, just jerking off dead last, doing nothing, while Bubba Wallace is by himself leading. Nobody can catch up to him. Then we have second and third place, which within 3 car lengths of each other. Then we got another 8 car lengths. Then we have 4th place, a couple more car lengths. Then we have 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. A little bit of a gap. And then we have more and more cars and things like that. And so this is just here for you guys to see this. What I want to look at more is this. And also, I have Las Vegas here for those of you that are like, well, how'd they do at the last race in Las Vegas here? This race went wildly green. When we're looking at the races this year, this is why, at least how my head works, when I look at this stuff, it is not black and white. It is not duh. I mean, we all understand DFS is really, really difficult. The swings are huge, and it's really, really hard to win these contests and stuff like that. But when we look at Las Vegas, earlier in the year, I don't remember which one I have up. Was it this one? Yeah, so this was earlier in the year. I want you to notice this stuff. Shout out to the guy who doesn't write the car numbers anymore. I guess they fired him because we're back to writing numbers again later in the season. Don't understand who was doing the job here. Maybe the guy had COVID, and the main dude had COVID, and they just had an intern type, whatever. We only had 4 yellows in this race. And what was even more wild is take out this spin with 2 to go, 1 to go. I think I don't remember what this race was. I think it was 267. I think that was the advertised distance. Pretty sure it's 267. Anyway, outside of this yellow here, we only have 3 yellows, and this race goes green in the end. Now, we have a green light checkered. We have several guys just wreck themselves on the last lap. We have A.J. Allmendinger. We have Briscoe, I believe. Where does Allmendinger fit? Yeah, we have like just a ton of idiots kill themselves on this last lap. We have Jones get heavy damage. And so really outside of that, nobody wrecked. There was no yellows. No interesting things going on of like, people getting short runs and being able to pass people. Average green flag run of 49 laps. Like, that is freaking huge, okay? It's even, I mean, it's adding this, like, 3-lap thing here, but percentage of race ran under caution. This is concerning, and I think it's going to temper, or not temper, but possibly pollute certain things when you look at it, because when we look back at these other races that we've ran this year, let's go ahead and look at, this was last year's race. I'll bring that up later. When we look at, and I just went back to, I think I went back to Pocono. Pretty sure I did. We're doing this backwards. I typically like to have them line up the other way. No, I went back to Michigan. When we look at Michigan, and we look at how I believe this race is going to play out. Actually, let me start with last year's race, and then we'll get back to these races here. When we look at last year's race, now this is a race to where I was very heavy on Bubba Wallace, Larson, and Christopher Bell, and the idiots kill each other. But we had a lot of single-car accidents in this race, which isn't crazy. A majority of the cautions that we have in the NASCAR Cup Series now are single-car spins. Now, you could argue that's a good thing, you could argue that's a bad thing. At least we're having more natural yellows. But I mean, I like cautions like 2 or 3 cars, or I like guys running into each other. We don't have that. Like back, if you turn to like a spring race at like Kansas or whatever from like 04, you're having guys bump each other out of the way, and one car gets into another guy, he spins out. That's not the style of yellow we're having now. We're having a lot of guys just losing it by themselves, either getting arrow loose, just hit the bumps upsetting the car, whatever the case may happen, and then they spin out, everything like that. And that's mainly what happened in this race here. Excuse me. Just a bunch of single car spins, a lot of yellows. Now, this lines up a lot more with how this year has gone. I believe we're going back this way. So when we look at Michigan, but Brandon, Michigan's a 2-mile racetrack. Dude, shut up. When we look at this race here, we have a higher percentage of this race ran under yellow. A lot less green flag. Now, this is only 200 laps, but still, this is, I think, it's still significant to look at. And we look at the amount of yellows, and we see that the amount of runs, you could argue that this is probably like a 50-lap run at 1.5. This is probably like a 30-lap run at 1.5, things of that nature. But we're seeing that these cautions are, we have a 67 green lap run at the end, which still, guys are still messing up. Like, we have Reddick just throw the race away. Anyway, when we have races that have a lot more yellows, it opens the door up for more unattractive plays. And what I mean by that is it's guys who aren't necessarily at the top of the top here. But people like Ryan Blaney, people like Elliott, people like Jones, Reddick, just guys that aren't like the top dominator that you envision when you enter these races, as in Larson, Byron, Truex, Hamlin. It opens the door up for other guys to lead laps. And I'm just using those names as examples because we can all indicate in our brains and our memories that, hey, Byron has a fast car, Larson has a fast car, things of that nature. But it really is like just driver A on the weekend. Driver A, B, C, and D, the 4 fastest guys in practice, the guys who were able to replicate that speed in qualifying, those are the guys you're envisioning leading the race. Whereas when we start getting more yellows, we can start looking towards drivers like E, F, G, H, I, et cetera, et cetera. So that was Michigan. When we look at Darlington, same situation here. More yellows, specifically in stage 3, which I think is significant because I think that's when we're going to see a majority of the yellows in this Las Vegas race, probably in stage 3, whether that be single car, whatever the case may be. Was this pretty sure this was the light yellow. Good notes here. Whoever's doing the note, at least you're putting the numbers back. But this was a lights issue that we need right notes here. When I'm looking back at this in 4 years, I'm not going to remember that the fucking lights went out at Darlington. Come on now. But we have quite a lot of yellows here. When we look back at the Kansas Speedway, where you're seeing a lot of, one-car incidents, which is pretty huge. I think this is a better indication of how this race goes out. So when you're looking back at this year's race in the spring, and I think we have one more race. We have Texas right after this. But when we look back at this race in the spring and you see a glaring, where we at? We see a glaring 9.6 percentage of race ran under caution. That's the anomaly. That's not how it's going to be. That's the anomaly. When we look at Texas, very similar in a sense of like, wow, one lane. Shouldn't be a lot of actual incidents, but there's going to be a lot of single car spins, and that's exactly what we saw. Shout out to where were we at? We don't even have this labeled. Is this Texas here? I could have sworn that 99 stopped on track. We're missing one here because that's the end of. We got this shit all rigged wrong, dude. He's got this. Hold on, this is wrong. So let's have some fun. Let's sidetrack really fast. Pretty sure this is JJ Yaley. This is not the 19 car. Yeah, real fast, I'm back. That note on Racing Reference is wrong. That is JJ Yaley bringing out the yellow with 24 laps to go at Texas. Like, can anybody actually do their job, please, and thank you? The only reason I remember that is because, again, I was at that, and I was like, yeah, dude, I love Rick Ray Racing. They saved us from a boring end of the race because JJ Yaley took that out. Like, 19 not spin here, he spin at the end of stage 2. Or stage 1. No, I'm pretty sure it was in stage 1. But I know this is wrong. This note is wrong. This 19, that is the 15 car. I don't even know how you fat finger. You go from 5 to 9. Your diabetic nub because you lost your hand because you just sit on your ass and eat chips all day. You just fat nubbed the keyboard and you put the 19 on here. What are you doing? Anywho, we have a lot of single car yellows in this race at Texas outside of the big wreck right here, which you're going to get at the end of any race anyway. But when we're looking at Vegas, I think the real thing to pay attention to for me is not necessarily entering with whatever drivers. All this is on the screen for you guys to look at. But when I look at the race here at Las Vegas this weekend, I more so want to kind of view it in a sense like this. Not driver by driver. Now, this is Pocono starting position, Darlington starting. This just means the race starting position. Because I was curious about this. I wanted to see where people were in terms of where they. And this isn't an end-all, be-all because this is just starting position and it's not finishing position. Just where they are in terms of speed. And you can go into this more if you're looking at practice data and stuff like that. Like for example, Texas in practice. It was Bubba Wallace, Larson, and Hamlin as the fastest guys. It was just going to be that anyway. They ended up being the fastest 3 guys, but you see that Larson and Hamlin both missed the final round of qualifying. So you had, you had 8 place differential already indicated there. But when you look at like this weekend's race at Kansas, I need to pay attention, or I would want to look at what's causing certain people to get the pole and them either fall back or over qualify. And then fall back to the field. It is very much a case of, like, for example, like Chris Buescher, in, actually, let me go ahead and bring this into a separate one here. Actually, that's not what I'm going to do. Hold on. Before I do that, or actually an easier way to do this would be to just pull the DraftKings salaries for this weekend. Go here. I want to. Are you gonna be able to see that? Yeah, that's real fast. Hold on. Let's bring it up this way. And yes, typically I like to have the salaries on this side, but I'm pretty sure my border would end up cutting it off slightly, and I like to have a difference in where these guys are in terms of this. Anyway, like when we look at these guys here, and this can just be the simple overview for everybody. Who's kind of undervalued? Who's overvalued? Who would probably be a good play if they show, good speed in practice, everything like that. Like I said, going back, it's not me necessarily being lazy because I don't believe it is, because I still do I rewatch shit during the week anyway. But the practice speed, laps, and then where they are in 5-10 lap runs, because that's really all they're getting in the shortened practices now. That's where all the bread and butter's made, man. Like if you're off pace in practice and you're off pace as fucking qualifying, you're not going to make that back anywhere. It's very, very difficult in this day and age of NASCAR to arrive at the track as 26th fastest in practice. You're qualified 28th. You're not going from 28th to 14th on race pace alone. You need yellows, you need late race restarts, and you need major guys who are going to race ahead of you to run into issues. So, I mean, that's the caveat I would bring up when you're just looking at these races or early previews and stuff. That's why I don't even necessarily look at optimal lineups of previous races anymore, because that's why I brought up, like, if you're looking at the optimal lineup in the spring race, well, that's not going to help you at all, because that race went green. Byron ran away with the sumbitch. Whereas if you at least have the idea of how other races have performed this year with yellows and stuff, I mean, I think that gives you a better indication of possibly how you can build or how these races could possibly shake out, or especially if it's a situation where, I haven't looked at anything through here yet, but say, like, just off my head, like, McDowell is mispriced. I would say Austin Dillon has a real chance of being mispriced, of being guys that, hey, maybe I want to play over. Like, I would, in my head, I'm like, yeah, I would totally want to play Austin Dillon over, Justin Haley, who's probably going to give you more place differential. Austin Dillon might qualify further up. I think I'd rather hit on the Austin Dillon wagon and try and keep him starting up front stuff, because we're seeing track position be more and more, especially being 2 years into the next gen car. We're seeing that track position is the key. Now, I know I'm coming off of the Roval where that was a situation there, but I'm not saying that because it happened last weekend at the Roval. I'm saying that because, like, go to the opposite extreme. Like, you go from the Roval, you go from a road course at the Roval to a single file racetrack at Texas, you can't move. However, you go to Kansas and stuff, all the guys who started up front and who had fast cars at Kansas were up front in that race as well. Like, we're not seeing huge gains and huge losses in these races. And so I want to lean more to not overvaluing place differential unless it's truly Larson, Hamlin, Byron, Truex, Bell. Like, unless it's these guys up here starting DFL with just an understanding, just by looking at where they're at in all these races and stuff, that they're going to easily have 26, 28 place differential just automatically given to them at the start of these races. Okay, so let's kind of go through and just look at how these guys have been doing as of late. Let's find guys that we kind of want to target. Of course, Larson, I don't know what else to say. Like, I'm not going to waste a lot of time with that. We're seeing situations to where he's going to be a top 10 driver. We're seeing indications of, hey, the times that he has missed qualifying or just had a bad car, he's showing us that, hey, we don't have to worry about that. He's going to have a good race. He's going to have good race pace. That's just how it is. We understand that Larson is going to have a top 8 car bare minimum. And this is what I do in my head anyway, but more people, I've wanted to just not necessarily show it, but show you what goes through my mind whenever I'm looking at a starting grid and I'm looking at their practice speeds, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, of course I'm going to give fucking Larson like a third place finish. Like, of course. Anyway, so Larson, clearly good. Hamlin, we don't got to go over these guys too much, but I will just highlight them all for you guys to see really fast. I pray that my mic isn't muted. That would make me very depressed. Byron, similar to what I was saying, is we've seen some guys make an increase. We're seeing that Byron on raw speed alone has had a bit of a backtrack from where he started this year with earlier. We're seeing that We're seeing that Byron had the fastest car to start the year, and then we get to, mid-year Pocono, and we're getting into the playoffs and the late race or the late year adjustments and stuff. Now, Byron did win Texas, like, good pit stall. You can't just back into a win if you're not up there in general. But in terms of, like, where we are at in general speed, we're seeing that Byron has taken a bit of a decrease. Now, is that going to have my impact on him, or how is that going to impact me at all? Well, I probably won't, unless he's showing the fastest practice, etc., qualifies up front, etc. I was usually estimating Byron for around 47 laps, probably anywhere from 36 to 47 laps led with like 24 to 31 fast laps. Probably back that down to probably 25, 27 laps led and probably 19 fast laps. Combine that with where he's starting, place differential, like, you can still see where he's averaging. Like, I'm not going to just remove him from the pool, but, you got to bring that back a little on Byron. You have to at least be aware of where that is. Whereas Reddick, on the other hand, is a driver who has been more consistent at racetracks that race similar to Las Vegas, whereas this is a situation where I would honestly throw Texas out because I would look specifically at Kansas, and I would look specifically at both Kansas races this year. And then I take a note of, okay, where was he at in a completely green race in Las Vegas? Have we seen an increase of where that speed was? Yeah, we've seen it. So I can easily see that, yeah, I think we're going to easily have a chance of Reddick being a top 7 guy in this race. Specifically based off of the last speed they had at a track that was very similar to Las Vegas. Now, why am I saying that? Because there's a lot of situations where I argue that every racetrack is a highway racetrack now. Whereas other people will be like, oh, this is a 1.5 medium bank track. This is a slow flat track, whatever the case may be. But when we're looking specifically at how Texas races versus Las Vegas, Texas, you're just fucked on the bottom. That's just where you get pinned down there. Like, you just run there because you have to. You can't run anywhere else. Whereas Las Vegas, running the high line, not just because it's Reddick, but you can run the high line, which yes is a good thing in his favor. But then you can run the middle, you can run the bottom. There's a lot of different ways to go about Kansas, whereas you can't do that at Texas. Okay, the high line is 3/4 of a car higher on the right side than where you're normally running and stuff like that. And so when I view Reddick at Darlington, at Kansas, like, he's showing me everything I want to. I would, entering this weekend right here, I would be shocked if Reddick doesn't qualify in the top 4. That'll be a bit surprising. Now, how surprising? Like, if he qualifies like 7, okay, I understand that. But if he just like whiffs and like starts mid, that's a big concern because this is a situation where Reddick should have a good car off the trailer for Las Vegas. Okay, I'm going to really do my best and not be like, well, all these guys are playable. But, I mean, look, it's early week preview time, okay? Everybody's going to look good. We can find good and bad things about everybody, all right? By the way, thank you for being here. We're 21 minutes into the video. If you want to support me, support the work that I do, you can always join the Patreon. That's pretty huge. You can also donate on PayPal if you ever perform well or if you ever just want to buy me a beer or whatever you're feeling. I'm moving in 2 weeks to just an apartment in the same complex, but a few buildings down, so I gotta pack all this stuff up. So maybe you want to pack with, or maybe you want to help with packing supplies like tape and boxes and things like that. Hey man, maybe send me a cool $700 through PayPal and help me do all that stuff. Anyway, we're seeing that Truex, like a fucking cockroach, has just mastered getting through the playoffs at this point. Just absolutely doing the bare minimum to really be the real active champion. I really hope he wins it because he's just manipulating the system. In terms of speed, Pocono was the last real time we saw Truex with any real potential. Fell off pretty big at Kansas. Now, I'm going to be honest right here. The specific thing with Truex at Kansas, I do not remember off the top of my head. I don't know if this was a speeding penalty, damage. No, he hit the wall. No, that is it. Wrecked on the second lap at Kansas. Or at least early in the race. He wrecked early at Kansas. In my head, I was like, I don't remember what happened to him there. But yes, that is what happened. He hit the wall, wrecked at Kansas. So we can kind of X that out. So that's not a real statement here. Texas starts 16th, actually. Hard for him to get through the field. We see an instance of him slowly making up track position. Finishes inside the points, either stage 1 or stage 2, then gets dumped by that Jones boy taking the green checkered flag. Goes to the back of the field, races his way back up, goes down pit lane again to get some damage done. He was just never able to really recover at Texas, but yet again, a big old asterisk around Texas, difficult place to pass. And so at this point, we got to go back to Darlington. Now, Darlington, I can't remember off the top of my head. I will have to re-look into what happened at Truex at Darlington. Do we put another asterisk on that? Do we put another, is this his real speed? But Brandon, you should know this. I apologize. I cannot remember what happened to Truex off the top of my head at Darlington. But going back to other races, we were seeing that before that, top 5 speed. So throw Texas out, in all honesty. Throw Kansas out because he was wrecked before he didn't have a chance to do anything. Yeah, looking at what happened at Darlington. Don't remember. We go to Bell. We have a good indication of where he's at in general. Now, coming off of 2 races where he had the pole position and he fell back in both races, that is pretty significant. He's fallen back in every race that he's ran in terms of starting position and finishing position. That is noteworthy. However, the main thing around that is the fucking pit road issues he's been having. Shout out to them trading Gibbs' team to give Bell a shot at the championship when they've just completely laid eggs like every time I'm pit lane. It's been insane. Blaney, this is what I mean, a situation where if we're expecting a lot of yellows and we're expecting a lot of people to focus more on short run speed or having that be a much more significant thing in this race. Yet again, it's not a lot of wrecks are happening, therefore a lot of people are going to wreck out of this race. No, it's not that. It's just a lot of single car spins, most likely them getting, tires not being taken out of the race, and we're going to more of short burst racing in these races of, anywhere from 15 to 30 laps. Blaney's a guy who is probably going to go overlooked this weekend, and for good reason, not any particular speed anywhere. But this is somebody who at 96, I'm like, yeah, I probably need to at least pay attention and possibly have some exposure to. He's a guy, as I said, once you enter a weekend and you understand your A, B, C, D drivers, and you have situations where yellows are going to come out and make other people viable, you start looking towards your E, F, G, H, I racers. And that's Blaney. That's Kyle Busch. I need to be more specific here. That's Kyle Busch. That's Chase Elliott, who is in the playoffs for the Owners' Championship. Like, you got to actually pay attention to that, who has had some pretty decent speed. I look at this as like, I probably need to start playing more Chase Elliott. We've gotten really lucky that he hasn't won a race yet. Because we probably would have been fucked if that happened earlier because we wouldn't have had a lot of Elliott. This is a situation, I probably need to start having more Elliott, or I need to start projecting him to do a little bit better than what he has, or what I have been projecting him at. Because typically I just project him for like an 8th place driver with very little fast laps and laps led. Now I think we have to start projecting that. Would not be shocked if Elliott shows up with true speed this weekend. We got Buescher, who is on the screen. We kind of know where he's at. Logano, very similar to these guys. Like, I don't envision, just off of raw points entering this weekend, Bell, Blaney, Kyle Busch, Elliott, Buescher, and Logano to just be projected that well. They're all going to be like right at value. Like, I'm pretty sure we're going to see Chris Buescher projected for 44 points, and he hits value at 45 points. Like, we're going to see a lot of probably 4.9 to 4.4 value on these drivers here. And so I just view the 9K range possibly being under-owned or not played a lot. So like, I think those guys probably make really, really good tournament plays just off the bat right here. When we look at Bubba Wallace, I think he's a fantastic play entering this weekend. Probably the best raw 8K range in terms of ceiling performance, in terms of raw upside, probably Bubba Wallace there. I envision he's probably going to be pretty popular. Whereas Keselowski is probably a decent pivot off of Bubba Wallace. They're actually pretty identical plays, which is indicated by their pricing and stuff. But at this point, probably, I think more people would probably play Bubba Wallace, just entering the weekend where I'm at right here. Don't know anything about where they're starting, but Keselowski probably makes a pretty good pivot off of Bubba Wallace if we're concerned about ownership at all. Chastain, going up. We have Harvick, yada yada. Oops, we have Harvick, yada yada yada. We know him. Ty Gibbs has just been phenomenal. You guys should probably start being Ty Gibbs fans because you got to deal with him at least for the next 25 years. Just might as well just hop on the bandwagon instead of bitching and moaning each weekend. We know where Bowman is. We know that Jones has been having more and more speed, which I don't know if it's the lack of Gregson. I don't know if they were just sabotaging him. Whatever the case is, ever since Gregson left, we have seen Legacy Motor Club run better and better. Hocevar has been killing it in that car. Suarez, Stenhouse, kind of, all these guys are on a race-to-race basis. We know, or not we know, but they very depend on where they're starting, what they're showing in practice. I'm not really concerned about that. I really want to focus more once we get into the low 6K range. I can't even fucking spell Eric Almirola. real fast, real quick. This is probably Phoenix 2018. Eric Jones in the 20 car. I'm in pit lane with my mom, just chilling, going, looking at tires and looking at all the pit crews and stuff. And there was this one lady just like screaming at the top of her lungs. She was just like, Eric! Eric! She was like a huge, huge Eric Jones fan, and it drove me that was loud. It drove me crazy. This bitch was like screeching. She was just like an Eric Jones lover, like fan, like good Lord, lady, what is wrong with you? Why are we such a big Eric Jones fan? I really hope she's doing better now, or in the insane asylum. Whatever is a better end for her. When we look at AJ Allmendinger, I mean, you want to talk about just somebody that not necessarily public wasn't respecting, because we've been playing a lot of AJ Allmendinger and Haley this year. At least based on my projections, I have been trying to get to them as a value play. But we're seeing a bit of a tick down here, and we're seeing two things here, because used to we had Haley and AJ just qualifying poorly. Now they're qualifying very similar to where they're finishing, and it's making them a really, really tough sell. Like when you look at AJ and his starting position, I don't have him for further race because I didn't put him up there, so I apologize for that. But AJ was starting outside of the top 15 a lot of the times, whereas now he's like starting right there. And that's a difficult play when AJ is offering negative, even or no place differential, slight place differential, negative place differential, negative place differential. Like that's a hard play on AJ, man. That's a real hindrance on his upside. Whereas you get McDowell in a similar range, who has even been more volatile than AJ in that. And yet again, these aren't finishing positions, but I look at this data more than finishing positions in general, because finishing position can be changed on a green-white checkered. Anything can happen. So when we're looking at starting position versus where they're running in these races, we're seeing that McDowell has been over-qualifying a lot compared to where he's been running. Texas, yet again, a situation where that didn't happen, but that's a bit of a concern. So, like, if we see McDowell start, like, 13th this weekend, let's really dive into the practice data and understand why he's doing that, what's causing him to do that, and then look at, hey, is there a chance he goes from 13th to finishing 16th in this race? Because that's not going to work. If you offer, like, anytime you have somebody, which I don't understand, I watch shows, I watch instances of people talking about picks and plays and stuff, and then it's like, yeah, this guy's starting 13th. He's got a lot of upside. Very easily could come in 15th. If he's losing you any place differential from 13th, he's not a play. You can't play a guy starting 13th, project to finish 15th at $6,000. We see that a lot. We can't. He's unplayable. You can't play him in that situation there. If these guys are off and they don't have top 10 upside, they are certainly faster than like 19th, but they are just starting right where they're they're unplayable. You just skip that play, at least in my opinion, to do. So that's a concern. We have Hocevar, similar situation, going back to like Bristol and stuff, and Darlington. Hey, outstanding qualifying. Pretty decent race speed, but like negative place differential, unplayable. You just can't sacrifice this amount of salary in your lineup for somebody losing you one position and so on and so forth. So that's interesting. Austin Dillon, like I said, a guy that I am. This is so disgusting. I'm interested. This is so crazy. I'm like, this isn't crazy. This is quazy. This is nuts. It's such a hideous play here. I can't envision anything given Austin Dillon like decent finishes. And the reason why is let's go back here and look at earlier in the year. Ran poor at Vegas. We see that he's running pretty mid-tier at these races. And then actually we'll go back here because it doesn't have a starting position. Pretty mid 20s to like 1-teen finish here. 1-teen, speed. But like, dude, this is, I view this like we can all see here that Dillon has just been horrific. He's been a terrible play, and I see this. I view it as this is such a horrific play based on current form that I'm like so interested. Like, Austin Dillon is the guy that I play with 5 chalk drivers. The highest owned DraftKings players, I would play with Austin Dillon because this is such a hideous, ugly debacle here. Like that's why I'm like, I think Dillon makes it like a fucking really nice tournament play because he projects so fucking poorly. Nobody's going to have him. You know, and when you're competing against 10,000 lineups and you got, you know, some killer baddies up here, you got some good place differential, and then you just jam in Austin Dillon in there, I think that makes it a good lineup. But anyway, like, current form looking terrible, but that's my 2 cents there. We have Priest, we have Cindric. With, yet again, Cindric is a situation where I've been overqualifying, just had a terrible car at Texas. Couldn't believe that. We look at Haley. Overqualifying, PD. And even here is a bit of a backstep. Like, we had a Haley performing pretty consistent around, 23rd to mid-teen. We're seeing that get pushed down a little bit. But 59, still easily understandable place different, or easily understandable value play. LaJoy, we know what we're getting with LaJoy. It's a situation where we know that he's going to finish right around this line, and if he starts, so yet again, LaJoy is a argument that we have seen a lot. I know for a fact he was very popular at Texas. He had quite a lot of ownership at Kansas, if I'm remembering correctly. Yet again, when we're projecting stuff, these are plays like LaJoy at Darlington, starting 22nd. That's unplayable. Very close to his upside of like 4 positions up, and offers you a huge amount of negative leverage if he performs any poorer than where he's at. He did that at Darlington. Didn't show any more speed compared to where he was here at Kansas, and really just shit the bed at Texas. Just completely missed the setup, and then got damaged, blew a tire, lost his right rear quarter panel for like 3/4 of the race. It's there. Burton is looking pretty bad now in this situation where starting position, and he give us any place differential plays. I don't know. Bit of a hesitation here. We'll have to see what he shows us in practice, because he has shown us decent speed earlier mid-year, that is. We look at Gillen, he is back. He's got to be in the front row car because we have Poole and Yaley and the Rick Ware stuff. This is Rick Ware. I don't fucking remember. Typically, the lower ones is Rick Ware. I know these are Rick Ware. His outside of Rick Ware Racing, we are seeing that he is right at like 32nd to probably 26 projected finishing position. Just depends on where he's at. I think Yaley makes a lot of sense. 52. Yaley and Poole. Actually, all 4 of these guys I think are pretty viable, and I like that they are actually being priced at pretty decent. At least where they should be. Like Texas, Yaley starts second to last. He has the third to last speed, but you look at where he finishes at Texas. We're at the wrong one. This should be Texas here. Nope, that's not it. Is this Texas? Where are we at? South Point. This is Texas. We look at where JJ finishes 32nd. I forgot. Yep. He gets involved in the wreck here. If he doesn't get involved in that wreck, J.J. Yaley most likely follows B.J. McLeod and finishes here, or at least mid-20s, okay? Same thing with Dillon, Brennan Poole, B.J. McLeod. You look at where they are. This is where this is deceiving because this is race speed. So, of course, they're going to be dead last everywhere. But you see where they qualify well. Dillon's been qualifying a little bit better, so that hurts his play, because when you're starting, 27, 26, even with crashes, you're going to finish right around there. He's like unplayable when he qualifies there. We look at Poole, who hasn't ran a race recently in this. I don't remember. It's been a while since we've seen him, so I don't have his starting position up right there. But just a similar instance to J.J. Yaley. Then we have Darwin McLeod. Good old BJ. Third to last, finished 22nd at Kansas. We look at Darlington. It starts last. We have a dot here, and we have no dot here. Did he blow a motor? I think he blew a motor at Darlington. I don't remember. We have two different. Why are we having? Oh, because I pulled this from DraftKings, and this is. So we have. I need to change that. Let me look at McLeod. Starting dead last, just situation as if we run into a lot of wrecks, run into a lot of instances, that's where these guys get saved. You're not playing these guys for a green race. You don't play J.J. Yaley, Ty Dillon, Britton Poole, BJ McLeod for a clean race. You play them to fit in all your lap leaders or any place differential that you want, and then just hoping that, hey, hopefully we get a late race yellow that takes out like 6 guys, and these guys can pass people and stuff like that, or just get through there through survival and stuff like that. So we talked for 40 minutes. I love intermediates. They're just way more fun to talk about than short tracks and stuff. I think there's a lot more outs and stuff if you're looking at a poker term for how you can approach this race and how it can play out, whereas same thing happens at short tracks, but it's much more dependent on laps led and stuff like that. Anyway, I was going to say, we talked about 40 minutes, and I don't have a favorite entering the weekend. I'm just aware of all this data and all this stuff entering this weekend. I'm aware of all this, so I enter the weekend at Las Vegas, look at where they're at in terms of practice speed, in terms of qualifying, and try to get an idea of how they're going to run the race. Hopefully this helps you in some form or fashion. If it doesn't, I'm sorry that you sat here for 40 minutes and didn't help you at all. But yeah, we'll be live for the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. If you guys, again, if you want to support me, support the work that I do, you can join the Patreon. You can donate through PayPal, or you can just super chat during live shows, or you can, I guess, just not do anything. Whatever you do, you man, it's free. You're the main character of your own world. You do you, and I will see you guys in the live show. See you guys then.